The bus rolled into the terminal, just as dawn touched the edges of New York. With pale light, Amir pressed his forehead against the window, heart pounding as the skyline rose in the distance, a jagged crown of glass and steel. He had dreamed of this sight for years, studying its shape from postcards and television screens. Now it loomed before him, vast and unyielding. He stepped out into the crowd. The air smelled of exhaust, roasted coffee, and wet pavement. People brushed past him, hurrying, colliding, never once meeting his eyes. For the first time, Amir felt the loneliness of being invisible. He whispered, "Yes, as my new life will begin." He clutched the strap of his leather bag, worn soft from the hands of his father before him. Inside it was little more than clothing, a notebook, and the faint scent of home. His fortune was not in wealth, but in hope. Hope alone could not feed him. Within weeks, the little money he carried dissolved, half devoured by rent for a single room in Queens, the rest by cheap meals that never satisfied. The room was narrow, its walls chipped and cold, its mattress thin as paper. Yet it was his, and he told himself that in this small space he would grow roots. The city, however, demanded sacrifice. By day, Amir worked in the dim kitchens of restaurants, hands blistered from scrubbing pans that never grew clean. At night, he hauled boxes in warehouses where the air smelled of sweat and dust. On weekends, he handed out leaflets to strangers who crumpled them without reading. The hunger gnawed. Sometimes he skipped meals to send a few dollars to his mother across the sea. His body grew lean, his face hollow, yet his spirit clung to his father's words. "If gold is hidden in stone, carve the stone until it shines." And so he carved. When night fell, after the noise of the city faded to a hum, Amir opened his notebook. Under the faint glow of a borrowed lamp, he traced English words again and again, whispering them until they no longer felt like strangers on his tongue. He learned from fragments, street signs, subway announcements, overheard conversations. Each word was a seed planted in the barren soil of exhaustion. Each sentence was a bridge toward belonging. But there were nights when despair slipped in like a thief. He would lie awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering if he had traded his life for a dream that did not want him. Tears came, sometimes silent, sometimes bitter. Yet even in those moments he thought of his mother, her hands rough from labor, her eyes waiting for him to return as more than the boy who had left. And so he endured. The city did not soften, but small mercies appeared like stars in a winter sky. The restaurant owner, who once shouted at him for broken plates, began to notice his discipline and gave him extra shifts. A woman who received a flyer paused long enough to tell him about free evening classes at a community center. A fellow worker, seeing Amir's empty lunchbox, shared his bread and said, "Don't give up. You're stronger than you know." These gestures were not grand, but to Amir they were lifelines. He clung to them, weaving them into his days, proof that even in a city built on indifference, humanity still breathed quietly. The years pressed against him like water against stone, wearing him down, shaping him. His English grew steady, his back stronger, his savings no longer vanishing into nothing. He moved into a cramped apartment with two other immigrants, men from Mexico and Ghana, each carrying their own dreams. The space was small, but filled with laughter, prayers, and the scent of shared meals. He enrolled in a trade program, his hands rediscovering the craft of carpentry his father had once taught him. The feel of wood beneath his palms was both foreign and familiar, like shaking the hand of an old friend. The first time he held a paycheck from honest, skilled labor, Amir's hands trembled. The paper was thin, but its weight was immense. Tears blurred his eyes, but he let them fall. They were not tears of defeat, but of becoming. One evening, long after the city had swallowed the sun, Amir stood on the Brooklyn Bridge. The skyline shimmered like a constellation forged from glass and fire. The wind brushed his face, carrying with it the sound of the city, sirens, laughter, footsteps, the endless hum of life. For the first time he felt not like a stranger, but like a thread in the vast tapestry of New York. He closed his eyes, lifted his head and whispered, not with hesitation, but with quiet certainty, "This is not where my life begins. This is where I have begun." And in that whisper was the story of every immigrant who had ever carved a place for themselves in a city that did not wait for them. Proof that even in the hardest stone, the hands of the patient can make gold shine